Make no attempt to reload your device. You are now entering the Hellhole.
Ooh, welcome back to the Hellhole. It is a late December Eve. You're in the Hellhole. I'm internet sensation Mick Lucifer. A little bit sore, a little bit sorry, a little bit worn out, but I don't know if you heard, the Game Awards happened today, and it was a big event, and we all tuned in, I'm sure, being the hardcore gamers that we are. I don't know where I'm going with that. I thought I would just, check out some of the trailers that were of interest. By and large, I got to admit, a lot of the Game Awards does not interest me. The AAA titles are not necessarily the big things that interest me when it comes to gaming. If you're around the Hellhole, I like my games. I'm a quote unquote gamer, but I don't necessarily go for the big titles. So a lot of the nominees not necessarily that interesting to me. Best debut indie game was kind of the most interesting category. I don't really think of myself as like an indie game guy, but I really enjoyed like Dredge is in there, Pizza Tower is in there, Venba was kind of interesting, Cocoon won. I feel like Cocoon only came under my radar like fairly recently, and I've found it quite interesting. I don't know if it's any good. There's a couple of other games I'm interested in checking out, but by and large, like I said, not really what I was into. I was there for the big preview trailers, as so many of us are. It's kind of like it's a commerce event as much as anything. It's not quite, sometimes it's called the Academy Awards, the Oscars for video games. It's not really quite that. The Keeleys, as we call them, they're not quite that, because there's a heavy commerce component that you don't necessarily see in the film awards shows. Obviously, it's all business, and there are business considerations. You see that even in the nominees for like the Best Picture Academy Award. Like you're getting Marvel films in there and stuff like that. They've expanded those categories. There is a business consideration, but you're not getting trailers for the upcoming films. Whereas that's a huge part of the Game Awards. That's why we're tuning in for the TGAs, the Game Awards. But okay, so going into this, I was looking for Death Stranding 2. Didn't see it. If you're around, if you were around earlier in the year, I'm a huge Death Stranding fan. I'm very excited for Death Stranding 2. Eager to see it. Didn't see that. Saw some other things. Let's get into some of these trailers, because there's sights and sounds to be seen and heard. I don't know if you can hear them. Hopefully the audio's all right. So we do these sort of like trailer reactions every now and then. It goes 50-50. Either trailer's too loud or it's too quiet. Doesn't matter. That's production. Deal with it in post. We're live, pal. This trailer really, took me by surprise. I'm seeing a couple of dudes like sitting on the couch playing games. I don't really care. What's all this stuff? And that's what I see. I see the Crazy Taxi license plate, and suddenly I'm alert. This wakes me up, this trailer, because I was getting a little bit like bored.
Of course I did.
Tuning out a little bit, and then this is like, well, hang on, did I just see Crazy Taxi? What's going on here? And the big surprise is SEGA has come to play. You know it's here. It's always on the board. SEGA rules. This is a SEGA kind of place here in the Hellhole. Check this out. Kicking it straight off. Jet Grind Radio, Jet Set Radio, whatever you call it. It's back, baby. Forget about Hi-Fi Rush, rekindling the old flame of the jet grind radio. The real deal's coming. Look at all this stuff. I mean, if you were here, what was it? Was it in the birthday extravaganza or something? I'm a huge Shinobi 3 fan. I love the Shinobi games. Shinobi 3 is probably one of my all-time favorite games. Incredible. What do you know? We got a new Shinobi. Sega have been talking about this for a while. They've been talking about, like, we're bringing back some of our classic IPs, the ones that we've neglected, that we've let sort of lapse, and it's sort of like, well, what do you want to see? I want to see a Shinobi. I want to see a Streets of Rage. I'd like to see Jet Grind Radio come back. That's kind of an interesting one. Kind of feels like Sega's delivering. Like, your wish list, okay, we'll do it. There's a couple that aren't quite, they're not represented here. I'd love to see a new Shining Force game. I don't know if that would be like a Sega. Does Sega, who owns Shining Force? I'd love to see a new Shining Force game. That'd be really cool. There's probably a couple of other Sega favorites. But like Shinobi and Streets of Rage are two of my go-tos straight away. That's what I want to see. And that's what they're delivering. So that's kind of exciting. A new Alex Kidd would be nice. I'd like to see something fresh. Maybe Miracle World inspired, but maybe do something totally new. I feel like Alex Kidd is adaptable, is malleable to different sort of ideas and things like that. Don't worry about it. It's not happening. Maybe it'll never happen. I don't know. One interesting thing is like Alex Kidd in Miracle World DX or whatever came out recently, so you might think, no, well, they've done the Alex Kidd thing. But not too long ago we had Streets of Rage 4, and we're seeing here there's a new Streets of Rage in the pipeline. So no barriers to entry here in terms of things that have been done recently. This is so good. Crazy Taxi looks cool. I've got Crazy Taxi on PS2 that I got not long ago. Like I enjoyed Crazy Taxi. Obviously, the arcade machine was sort of ubiquitous. If you're out there in the late '90s, yeah. The sounds of Offspring like echoing off the walls in the arcade. Crazy Taxi's cool. It was one where I was like, I was never great at it. I had to. I'd like maybe a Crazy Taxi that's a little less reliant on those arcade style like time trials. Loosen it up. Let me play the game a little bit. Let me enjoy the game. Reward me maybe rather than penalizing me. I don't know. Is that against the spirit of Crazy Taxi? Maybe it is. Maybe we just gotta get good. Looks like Sega's getting good. This is awesome. I'm kind of like we're dancing around it, but the Shinobi thing is like the art style is interesting. It's going to be a little bit of an adjustment, but I'm seeing when I look at it, I see Shinobi 3. That seems to be the big frame of reference. Maybe was it Shinobi Legion? Was that was it a Dreamcast game, or was it it might have been a Saturn game? The similarities are there, but it seems to be Shinobi 3, the best of the Shinobi series, is really providing a reference base. Streets of Rage has me a little bit nervous because it looks like they're going for 3D Streets of Rage. Actually, Shinobi, the sort of flash animated cartoon style is a little bit what I'm seeing in Shinobi. I wouldn't necessarily mean that as an insult the way I might if I said it about other games. I think Shinobi is going to be an adjustment. We need to see more too. There's hardly any of the Shinobi, game in this trailer. This is a hell of a sizzle reel though. Like it got me excited. For me, this was the winner of the TGAs. Forget about the awards. It's all about what's coming up. Sega is coming back. Sega's come to play. Hopefully, these are games that I will buy and play, I think, which is not always the case. Sometimes, I'm not going to get to it. New Shinobi's going to get me. Streets of Rage might. Like I was saying, Shinobi, Streets of Rage has me a little bit nervous because it looks like it's a 3D Streets of Rage, which is not, in principle, a bad idea. But after Streets of Rage 4 did the comeback in sort of a classic 2D style with the updated graphics, which were initially a bit like I'm looking at Shinobi. It's not quite the classic look. It's got that sort of like, computer animated cartoon look to it. Initially, that was the impression of Streets of Rage as well. I was a little bit hesitant. Turned out it was great. So that's cool. This is looking good. This looks, the classics. Here's Streets of Rage. Not quite sure what's going on there. It looks like it's a little bit of a boxed-in area. You want to see free-flowing streets. I'm sure that's going to be part of it. These are just like early previews, I'm sure. It says early development footage, subject to change. can only judge this stuff so much so far. It's really about potential. The and more is interesting. I wonder what else Sega's going to pull out. It seems like they're making a serious play, which I'm very excited about. Gaming is back, baby. Sega has come to play. I would love just to see Sega go hog wild and commit to this. So for me, this was the most exciting thing of the whole show. Not a lot to go on. It all looks pretty exciting. Jet Grind Radio was, Dreamcast. It's all about the style, and the style is here. It's in the trailer. So for me, that's pretty much good enough. Good work, Sega. Pretty exciting. I'd be curious to see what else they come up with. Golden Axe, kind of dancing around it. Golden Axe was never really my thing, but, it's cool. And it looks like they're doing something interesting with it, so that's good. Taking it into the 3D realm in a different way, by the looks of it, to Streets of Rage. And really, by their very nature, they're different things, because, Golden Axe is the epic fantasy thing. You got your barbarian warrior guy, you got your dwarf and all that kind of stuff. So it's a very different premise, and riding on beasts is always something that people like to think of for the Golden Axe series, and it looks like one of those beasts is present. I'm sure it's going to be in there. Here, more of the Shinobi, look at this. Very Shinobi 3 by the looks of it, some of those stages. There's the Golden Axe, there's the beasts, all that stuff. So lots of interesting stuff going on with Sega. We're going to move on because there's still plenty of things to look at. I'm excited about Sega. It's easy to deal with the things that are good, really. Now here, I didn't get my Death Stranding 2, and I didn't get necessarily a game that I'm going to play. We've already known for quite a while now that Kojima's working on an Xbox title. There is some sort of technical aspect that made the partnership with Xbox attractive to Kojima Productions. I don't know what that is. I don't know that we're necessarily getting that from this teaser trailer. From what I'm seeing, this looks to me like this is straight up like recording capture. I don't even know if this is... I mean, their face scan technology is so good that you don't necessarily know when it's a CG model and when it's just the actor. Udo Kier, I can't remember. I was thinking about Udo Kier recently, and I was thinking like, oh yeah, what's he up to? Well, here he is, like, guy who's been around a whole lot. You think of, I think, like Andy Warhol's Dracula is one of the big ones that comes to my mind. I'm sure there is much bigger. In reference to that, he showed up in the original Blade film. That's going to be relevant. Stay tuned for that. I don't know this actor, but they're giving it their all, by golly. This looks to me like it is straight up like... I mean, do they record performances? I don't actually know. Yeah, probably. You always see like Norman Reedus and Mads Mikkelsen hanging out. So that's cool. This looks really interesting. And so the presentation, I'm just rolling with the trailers here, but for the stage presentation, Kojima came out of a spooky door. I liked the 9 Inch Nails song. That's a song that I like a lot. That's actually a song that I wondered if I could get a cover version to be the Hellhole theme at one point. I was going to do something for the Hellhole with that song, Came Back Haunted. So that was just amusing. A little bit of personal preference reflected. I feel like, I'm not going to say like I'm some kind of genius or something, but I feel like there's something that Kojima is tapping into that I enjoy already. And like I've said in the past, huge Death Stranding fan, but that was really the first time that I really went all in on a Kojima game, because I kind of like Metal Gear Solid, massive part of the zeitgeist, certainly aware of it, but didn't really invest myself in any of the Metal Gear Solid games, which I think that surprises people sometimes, and I can understand why, because it does sort of seem like the kind of thing. I mean, when I'm thinking of what I'm not getting from the Game Awards, it's the stuff that I used to love in the PlayStation era, and it is maybe a little surprising that I let Metal Gear Solid got away from me. So this game, OD, there's like there's some sort of drug element, overdose, it's a horror game. Jordan Peele came out through the spooky door on the stage. That was, that was an interesting presentation. I don't know, like I'm not all in on Jordan Peele's stuff, but there's an interesting bass line, and one of the interesting things was really that they were saying like Kojima is collaborating with other people as well, and it seemed like, we know that there's always an actor component. It seemed like they were implying that the collaborators are sort of on an even keel with Jordan Peele. I didn't mean to say it that way. But it got me curious. It made me wonder, is OD, there's clearly a horror element. We know he's worked with Guillermo del Toro on PT, the playable teaser for Silent Hill, the aborted game. Look what you did, you little jerks, Konami. So there's an existing relationship with Guillermo del Toro. He's always hanging around, being a weird little guy, raising hell with Nicholas Winding Refn. So there's these other directorial companions emerging in the Kojima universe, particularly as Kojima Productions enters into the film world. Not just referential, but there's a Death Stranding film project in some level of development or something, and so there's all these sort of strands. But yeah, I wonder if the collaborator element might imply that OD could be. Is it an anthology kind of platform kind of game? Is this a platform for horror developed with different collaborators? I don't know. That's wild speculation based on a very minor reference to there being more collaborators. Don't really know what the Jordan Peele involvement is. That's kind of where the speculation goes rampant. Clearly something spooky's going on. I don't know. I'm sort of interested. I'm also sort of repulsed because Xbox seems to just Xbox up everything they touch. There is always an unsavory element, and I feel like no matter how much they try, they buy all these studios, they buy all these things. They're trying to buy cool, and they're just never going to be cool, okay? I'm not an Xbox guy. I just find it a little repulsive. It did irritate me, though, because there was a Game Pass sort of trailer thing, sizzle reel, and I was thinking like, yeah, here's a bunch of Xbox crap that I don't really care about, that's not connecting with me. And then immediately after that, the PlayStation logo comes up and it's like, okay, what do you got? And they've got the fucking Avatar game, which I could not be less interested in. Get good, PlayStation. That's what I say. As much as I find Xbox repellent, and that somehow they sort of nerd up, they sully everything that they acquire, PlayStation's not delivering either. PlayStation is just blah. Maybe it's even worse. Like Xbox is maybe taking a few shots, making a few deals. I might find them repulsive. They might fall completely flat, but at least they're, stirring it up. PlayStation is just kind of like, we're just waiting for them to do something good, please. Will you get in the game? OD, I don't know. It's not going to get me to buy an Xbox, I'm pretty sure. I cannot see myself crossing that divide. I mean, we make jokes about like Sega rules and all that stuff. The console war stuff it's just a bit of fun, really. It's a consumer decision. It's a personal preference decision. I'm just not interested in what Xbox has to offer. Do what you got to do. Maybe I'll live vicariously through you if you end up playing OD. I don't know. Leave a comment and do all that stuff. I don't know. Ring the bell. Let's move on. So I didn't get Death Stranding 2, but here's one that I was not really familiar with. It's called The First Descendant, and I bring this up now not because it's some sort of pressing matter. I don't know what kind of order we're working through here, but I did start with Sega because that was the big favorite. I wanted to start off on a positive note because, contrary to what some people may tell you, I'm not a negative guy. I like the positives. It's just sometimes difficult to find them. You got to do a bit of work these days. I mentioned The First Descendant now because it kind of looks to me like, what if Death Stranding had some Starfield and a bit of anime, a bit more anime, I should say. There was plenty of anime in Death Stranding. Look at this thing. This is cool, though. This kind of looks interesting to me. It's at risk of being a bit like everything else, because there's a hell of a lot of stuff. I was starting to lose my mind. I'm really over these games that look so naturalistic. I don't want to see reality. Give me artifice. Now, this is cool, a bit like Death Stranding, where it's got that sort of like, it's a very sort of like Icelandic environment, the greens, the rocks. And that's why this feels so Death Stranding to me, with a different sort of element added to it. But that element that they've added, these suits, the colors, the vibrancy, it's very exciting to me. I think, it's elevating it beyond the reality. And the reality that they're using, that's sort of like Icelandic landscape with almost like the volcanic rock and the like the craggy rocks, the moss and all that stuff, the green, the water, there's a palpable coldness to the environment that I sort of respond to. I don't know if that's I don't know, is that some sort of like sense memory? Are we getting into epigenetics and predispositions and things like that? I don't know. I respond to this kind of imagery. I think this is kind of cool. Yes, it's rooted in the naturalistic. It is rooted in the real world. But what they're doing with it, it's an extreme of the real world. It's an extreme of the real world that a lot of us don't experience. It is sort of unique to sections of the planet. Maybe not, you could find parts of this in different parts of Europe and the United Kingdom, Ireland. There's a certain Irishness to some of that sort of landscape. Nevertheless, I'm down here in the hellhole, cooking, roasting, toasting. This is interesting to me. I respond to it. All of this stuff, it feels a little bit Death Stranding with the red water and stuff like that. I don't want to spoil Death Stranding, but there's some visual cues here, some ideas that feel consistent with it. I wonder, is the First Descendant, could it be just flat out, influenced by Death Stranding, which is not something I would necessarily want to see. Even the way that like little hover thing, it reminds me of like the little your delivery buddy, and the hover, like the little hover tray thing you can put stuff on. I don't know. I'm this big Death Stranding fan. I can't even remember what anything's called. Give me a break, okay? This is cool. Whatever this creature thing is, the like high heels. What do you call it? Like Zone of the Enders, sort of Evangelion creature thing. There's probably a better reference for all of this stuff. That thing. I mean, that just looks cool to me. I don't know what I would compare that to. It's kind of like an Evangelion vibe. It's almost like an angel crossed with one of the AVA units. I don't know what this game's all about, but it's kind of interesting to me. Do you agree? I don't know. Leave a comment. Shout me out in the chat. I don't know it looks like there's a whole heap of people passing through the chat. You don't have to get involved, that's fine, but if you'd like to, go nuts. Let's get into this one, which you would have seen if you were checking out the end of the last season of Fortnite. If you've been in the hellhole, you know I'm getting even with Rocket League slowly but surely, trying to get back to that sometime sooner than later. I love Rocket League. It's been great getting back into Rocket League this year. If I had to name, like, I was toying with, should we do like the Hellhole Game Awards and look at the games that I was playing this year, and Game of the Year might be Rocket League for me. It's the game that occupied a large part of the year, sort of at a trying time. It came back to me, having been away from it for a few years, and it captured some sort of spirit. But amusingly enough, I was talking about, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, I was talking about this idea of like, Fortnite. I mean, Fortnite and Rocket League were two of the primary examples in reference to like all the sort of like crossovers you get now, the franchise IP guest characters and things like that. Even thinking of Mortal Kombat with the guest characters that they add and the guest fighters and stuff. But I was thinking about I like a racing game. I like stuff, I like movies and things like that. And just the idea of like nobody's done a really satisfying racing game where it's all the iconic cars sort of thing. Like maybe you sit down with friends, maybe you're online or something. You're talking about like who would win a fight. Used to be a bit of a talk about like who would win a race. The Batmobile, the Mach 5, the DeLorean, like all these famous cars. And I was thinking about like the idea of a new sort of game, and you're thinking like Epic Games would make sense to make it. Essentially, this is kind of it. And I was thinking, yeah, you put like a couple of the Rocket League cars in. The Octane is an obvious one. Have your base roster of sort of like original cars, and then you load in like your Twisted Metal cars. I made a huge list. I was even thinking about make a sort of presentation. I almost thought this was going to be it. I buried the lead because Rocket Racing isn't a game. It's not a real game. If this was a game, I would be very excited. I would be playing it. But it looks like it's something that's coming to Fortnite. I'm probably not going to get into Fortnite, if I'm totally honest. Find it in Fortnite. People have been talking about Rocket Racing for a long time too. I should I should fully acknowledge that I'm aware that fans have been talking about a racing mode for Rocket League, and when I was playing Rocket League, I was inevitably thinking of that myself, and I think it's been on people's minds. I believe there was some sort of like prototype or something at one point, or an aborted mode or something. I don't know. I think I was out of Rocket League whenever that stuff was happening, but it seems like a no-brainer, and I would love... I don't know that this kind of track type is necessarily what I was thinking, although it does sort of fit into, when I was talking about this sort of general game concept where you could start adding all these sort of well-known vehicles as racers and maybe even drivers. That's where I was thinking of the Fortnite connection as well. You could have customized drivers. You could have your Fortnite character be the driver for your car. Maybe you could include cars that you had in your Rocket League, sort of get a lot of cross-pollination between things. But I was talking about Wacky Races was kind of like a big reference point too, the old cartoon where you've got sort of like the different racing types. And this track sort of reminds me of this seems like an updated sort of Wacky Races type thing. So in that respect, it is kind of what I was thinking of. I don't know if I'd quite go that way though. I was interested too. You could do tracks that were sort of based on crossover properties, which they have. I don't know if they always do. They're doing it now. You've got like Fortnite Lego or Lego Fortnite and all that kind of stuff. That kind of stuff rubs me up the wrong way. Lego is kind of like, I'm starting to think of Lego, there's some sort of phenomenal statistic where there's like more Lego than there is currency or something. Like, it's really absurd how much Lego there is, and it grinds against me when you've got like all these Lego TV shows. Instead of just a Jurassic Park cartoon, you've got like a Lego Jurassic Park cartoon. It's all this like, it's very, very like corporate promotion, cross promotion stuff, and it's sort of the imagination aspect. It grinds on me. I sort of think, is Lego a creative medium, or is it becoming a cage? Is it actually caging imagination? Is it trapping young minds in this sort of like branded mentality instead of don't make something Lego, make something, do that, go create something wholly original. Lego is like a good introductory facet, and you can do incredible things with Lego. I'm not totally shitting on Lego, but just the cross-pollination of all these things. Everything is becoming associated with everything else. There's no like strong, unique experiences. I shouldn't say that because obviously we're looking at some. It's just irritating. Let's get away from all this cross-pollination. Get away from trying to make one thing more like something else and give me vivid experiences. And that's some of the thrill of the SEGA properties coming back, because they're all doing their own thing. They're bringing back these sort of vivid experiences. So that's kind of cool. I don't know. That's just that's kind of how I'm feeling about it. Maybe we should move on. I would love Rocket Racing if it was a new game. That's what I'm saying. Let's move on to this one where we're entering into bittersweet territory. We're entering into territory where, I live here. This is my home. But I haven't necessarily been keeping it for quite a while. We're talking about comic books. I keep threatening to more overtly involve comics in the Hellhole. If you're around the Hellhole different times, you would have seen me. Holding up comics and stuff that I'm reading or that are just around the office. I mean, what?
Turn that shit up.
I've been thinking about maybe doing something, just something with recent comics I got. Here's one. Here's an issue of Shadowhawk. It's upside down. I got that recently. There's always comics. It's absurd. There's massive stacks of comics. So here we got Marvel's Blade coming to games. I feel like there's so many games now for Marvel characters that have been announced. It's a little bit ridiculous. This trailer is purely a teaser. It gives you very little impression of what's going on. Nothing to go on. Is that Blade? I guess it is.
Lock up tight now.
I don't know what their inspiration is. It doesn't feel like it's not quite Comics Blade. It's not quite Wesley Snipes Blade, who is sort of like if you're going to go away from comics, that's a good one. I mean, the Wesley Snipes Blade, it does actually reflect where that character was in sort of the 90s a little bit. It's a modification, but it is a respectable modification. I like Blade. Arcane Leon is doing it, and I think they were saying, I don't know where this location is. This seems This sort of seems like an American environment. I'm not really sure where. I don't know if it's correct, though. It could be. I gather the game might be in France. Maybe this is a French location. I don't know that that's what I'm looking for in a Blade game, particularly like we don't really have a definitive Blade game. There was one, I think there was, are there 2 Blade games? Was there one for each of the first 2 movies? First one was maybe PlayStation, second one was PS2. I didn't really play them, so I don't really remember, but I did. I think I dabbled in Blade 2, which sort of had the ashing effects for when you kill the vampires, which was sort of like a cool development. But it feels like we don't really have a definitive Blade game. What is a definitive Blade game? I'm not really sure. I don't really know Arcane Leon all that well. I think Chris Cornell was in the chat Discord telling me. Were they involved in Deathloop? I'm not sure who was involved with what. I shouldn't really speculate. I should do some research. I don't know what to make of this Blade game. Essentially, it's too early. It's too early. I mean, we saw a teaser a bit like this for Wolverine as well. What, a year ago? 2 years ago? How long has it been? Oh, yeah, from the studio that did Dishonored and Deathloop. I kind of thought Deathloop looked cool, but I didn't really dabble in it, so I don't really know if it lived up to potential. I'm reluctant to say hype. I thought Deathloop showed a lot of potential. It'd be good to see Blade in like a strong narrative context. I mean, it's vampire hunting, some sort of like narrative-driven, open world, sandbox maybe kind of environment. It'd be great to see some other Marvel characters that are relevant. I would love to see, like, when I say Midnight Suns, I'm talking about the comic book Midnight Suns, the 90s Midnight Suns, not the recent game that was sort of just like a Marvel mishmash of things. Some of it good, some of it not so good. It'd be great to see Morbius in there. It'd be great to see, like Frank Drake, I'm drawing a blank now. Who's the other guy? Hannibal King. Cool to see him. Doctor Strange in there, Ghost Rider, all those kinds of characters. It'd be, if you want to throw in like Werewolf by Night, Jack Russell, the werewolf, that'd be cool. Man-Thing maybe could be Man-Thing's in the swamp. That's the problem. If you're going to France, it'd be great to like tap into that too and get some like maybe Batroc the Leaper, maybe Le Peregrine, sort of a slightly more obscure Marvel French character. There'd be a few. I don't know. This one doesn't immediately excite me, but if you can come up with a good Blade game, if you can get more of the comic energy, that'd be really cool. One small note, through the films and everything, it's sort of been forgotten. Blade is English. The character is English. Eric Brooks is from England. I forget to what extent he was American in the original comics, but he wasn't an English character, so I always think like, when you're redesigning the character, if you want to remember something, maybe remember that and not drift too far to something else. There's sort of a tendency maybe to like push him to Harlem or something like that, with everything that's going on. It's sort of like, yeah, I see what you're doing, but you're kind of forgetting that this is an original character from a comic book. I don't know. Interested to see where Blade goes. There's a lot of potential there. Now, I'm much less interested to see where Suicide Squad goes, sorry. Suicide Squad is like the original run. The John Ostrander comic is one I love. It's a fantastic comic. I love it. I don't know what else to tell you. It's just a really good comic. It's a great series. That original series in particular is what I'm talking about. So original series, you're not getting King Shark. You're not getting like Harley Quinn. That's for sure. She's a very new edition, very lazy edition. This is clearly very movie inspired. I thought the first Suicide Squad movie sucked. It was miserable. It was terrible. It was a massive insult, a massive waste of a fantastic comic book property. The second film by James Gunn was an improvement, but still not brilliant. It was an improvement. It injected a little bit more comic book reference. I don't know. I think you could make a fantastic Suicide Squad game based on those original comics. The politics of it might get a little dicey with some of the characters, but DC have modified some of those things over the years. It's nothing too spicy if you're worried about that kind of thing, but it's like there's a team of villains called the Crimson Jihad, and I think just that word and that name is sort of a little bit inflammatory, a little bit gets people nervous, understandably. And there was sort of like terrorism in those comics. They're from the 80s, which I think is also sort of contextually relevant. But we're not pretending that the terrorism doesn't exist and stuff, and there's supervillains. I don't know how much you worry about all that stuff. None of that matters because it's not in this game. But this game, could not be less interested, really. This is almost, it's a step better than the Zack Snyder movies, which were just everything that's wrong with DC right now, as far as I'm concerned. As a longtime comic book fan, there is nothing there for me. As a film fan, there's very little there for me. And these games just, as a gaming fan, there's very little here for me. I don't want to kill the Justice League. I'm sick of games that are like dirtbag simulators, who can be the biggest scumbag sort of thing. Sick of it, man. Give me some good DC comic book heroes in the classic style, or the modern classic style at the very least. This just seems like a miserable use of the property. I don't know what. I mean, DC is just, so hit and miss, more miss than anything. I was tempted to just ignore this altogether because, I'm not going to play it. I'm not really very interested in it. I find it very disappointing, hugely disappointing. And I feel like this is the kind of thing that should be pitched straight to me. I mean, it's not really, because a lot of comic things just are not hitting with me. As a longtime comic book fan, there is a line in the sand where movies start to matter more. Like around the 2010s, movies are more important. Comics start to sort of cannibalize themselves, incorporating aspects of the movies, but not. There's a whole range of problems feeding into that, where there's sort of suddenly everyone's swapping powers. The values, the pillars of good fiction start to sort of fall down, where everything is becoming less defined. It gets to be a little bit, you're killing your own icons. Everything starts to smell of death, and this game participates in that too. That notion that DC is just constantly killing itself. Not literally, but sort of literally as well, because they're killing the characters off, in that regard. It stinks, man. And this is such a gross, aesthetically it's not very nice. The Superman sort of is respectable. It's nice to see the costume with the trunks. I don't know if that was the case in the original previews. The Green Lantern looks kind of cool. See that's kind of cool, although it's that junky armored look that somebody out there seems to think makes it easier to accept a superhero. If you put some seams and some armor plates, that makes it quote unquote realistic. What is that? Aesthetically, it looks like shit. Why is the Flash covered in bits of metal and shit? It just looks ridiculous. It's insulting. It insults my intelligence that you can't just deliver me one of the greatest comic book modern pop art designs of all time. You gotta cover it in that shit. I don't know. I don't want to get too negative. We've done enough. Forget that game even exists. Nobody needs to worry about that at all. It's amazing that game's even coming out, because I gather there were issues with microtransactions, and Warner Brothers clearly has some sort of issue going on where it's infecting everything. I don't know if it's a mandate coming down from on top. You can even see Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat was already, there's been this huge blowback against Mortal Kombat 1 for some of its practices and things, the way they're selling things and stuff. But people forget apparently that they've been doing that since Mortal Kombat X. So not even the last game, the game before that. And Injustice is in that lineage as well. Absolute God bless, God send that there's no Injustice game yet. I hope there won't be another one, because I don't want to deal with it. Injustice, Suicide Squad, Kills the Justice League can both go back to hell as far as I'm concerned. They suck. I'm going to shut up about that because we got Black Myth Wukong on the screen. And this looks kind of cool. This has been like, we're doing these sort of like trailer reactions every now and then. This is one that's come up before, but I've sort of like, it's got that naturalistic look. It looks interesting, but I didn't have that much to say about it. I figure I throw it in here because it looks cool. This looks cool. Again, I'm pushing back against these sort of naturalistic things. I like a more stylized environment, stylized game, something with more of a visual aesthetic. That's something that comic book games aren't delivering, and certainly comic book movies and live action stuff are not delivering. It's the visual signature. In the case of comic books, it's a visual medium. It's such a huge part of it that it's baffling that they're not delivering it. Journey to the West has been interpreted in so many ways. I'm not going to come down too hard on it. These character designs look so cool though. Like some of these are really cool. I gather there's like some sort of Spider-Man up there, and here we go, giant spider. It's a giant spider. Sun Wukong's cool. The Monkey King, it's getting a little bit dicey where like everybody's jumping on their version of Journey to the West and the Monkey King. Clearly, like the value of China as a market was pretty important there for a few years, or certainly lucrative. It was a lucrative potential market, so a lot of Western. Like even DC Comics did their version of the Monkey Prince or the Monkey King, and there's all these different versions. So it's getting a little bit in danger of being played out. But Black Myth Wukong has been in the pipeline for a while now. I don't know what iteration of the trailer this is. It's still not coming out until next August, so I'm not quite sure what the development cycle of this is. I forget. I'm trying to think like who's developing this. Is this a Chinese developed game? Because there's been that big push for like Chinese developers, and to me actually a lot of it has been sort of like strong potential but maybe disappointments, weak foundation sort of thing. I think of that rabbit game, I think it was called Fist, where it was sort of like I was very interested on the first look, but then the more I looked at it, the less interesting it was. It was sort of like the game itself was very sort of half-baked. It sort of had some interesting designs and components, but it sort of had that thing where like, the characters are all a little too small, the environments are a little too basic, the tasks of the game are a little too repetitive. If this is a Chinese developed game, I'm not sure if it is, but who better to deal with the source material? And this game looks quite interesting. I gather it might be a little bit of a Souls-like, maybe. I'm not sure. I think this one, like, it came to prominence after Elden Ring, and there's been a few games like that. I could be confusing it with another Sun Wukong game because there's just Sun Wukong showing up in different games. There was an MMO that had like a big component of it. I think there's another game that's got Monkey King in it. It's kind of becoming... It's a reconnecting with it because there was like the 70s Japanese TV show that everybody in like the UK and Australia and stuff, we would think of that. Obviously, Dragon Ball is a big sort of adaptation, reinterpretation. It takes inspiration. I like the way Dragon Ball takes the inspiration of Journey to the West, but does its own thing and creates its own conceits and aesthetics and stuff. That's the kind of thing I'm looking for. That's what I want to see. Again, this is a little naturalistic, but I sort of trust like some of the references to these creatures. Remind me of some of the more recent film adaptations that have been done for Journey to the West, and there's enough here that I do find that quite interesting. Some of it quite appealing. This looks cool. Hopefully, it's a good game. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure if I'll rush to play it, but I think this one was cool, and I thought it was definitely worthy of acknowledgement and just getting into the interesting mix, because I'm pulling out the trailers from the Game Awards that struck me as a little bit interesting. I'm desperately trying to suck the marrow out of this stuff, like trying to find something to enjoy. This is pretty good. I like this. I mean, check that out. Diving onto a dragon, that's pretty good. It's a little bit God of War, I guess. I would like a stronger aesthetic just to be a bit more invested, because couldn't be less interested in what they're doing with God of War. Some of this looks cool. I mean, this looks pretty interesting with these sort of far out creatures and demons and the special powers and everything. I think there's a lot of potential there. It looks pretty good. This one was interesting. Tales of Kinzera. In terms of comparisons, inevitably people are going to be looking at the Black Panther films and the sort of Afrofuturism movement and stuff. In terms of palettes and design traits, there is a lot of that sort of Marvel Wakanda influence. I sort of, I got like two minds about it because I think this looks pretty cool and I like what it's doing. The aesthetics of it are interesting, and the flair of it all. It does remind me of the Marvel Black Panther stuff, but the Marvel, and I emphasize it's the film, because the film kind of did its own thing, and the comics had a little bit of a different flavor, even in some of the revamps and reinterpretations. My mind always goes to, obviously, you're thinking of Jack Kirby's originals. There's some great stuff there. And then I'm thinking of like the Christopher Priest written comic, which sort of becomes the definitive texts. And then Reginald Hudlin and like John Romita Jr. just iterate on it slightly, repackage it slightly. So those are kind of like your big Black Panther references, and those aren't consistent with what the film did. There's elements that are clearly inspired by, and there's elements that are consistent, but so I don't know. It's sort of like I wish the Marvel films were more anchored to their identity from the comics instead of these sort of like wishy-washy film versions. And then something like this, when it comes along, would stand out a little bit more, assuming that it's inspired by its own reference points. I don't know. I don't want people getting weird about this. Like, if you've got some weird take, don't bring it to me, because I'm not interested. Africa's out there, buddy. It exists. It's existed for a long time. This stuff is clearly, in part, inspired by mythic tales and things like that, which is really cool. I don't know, this looks cool to me. This does have that little bit of an issue, so I guess it's like a Metroidvania kind of game. It's got that issue where the characters are super small on the screen, and I feel like that's something that you're seeing in a lot of games, and it's sort of, to me, it diminishes everything. If you look in, to me, it could even be like it strikes me that a component of causation, the thing that's making it happen, is maybe in part the development, digital development. It reminds me, obviously comic books are a big reference point for me. It reminds me of digital comic book art, where the artist is working on a screen, they're zooming in and out, they're acutely aware of these like fine details, but then when you go to see like a complete page, the composition of the page is not, it doesn't cohere. It's very it's forest for the trees. There's all these like, so the artist is acutely aware of too micro a detail, and then when you look at the actual product, the detail is very small and almost insignificant, and it sort of muddies. It can muddy the image. Sometimes it can flatten the image out, make it really uninteresting. And I feel like that's kind of the thing that's going on with these games that have these small characters that maybe in the development, the developers are acutely aware of like these fine details that we, the player, don't get to see. We don't get to. We don't really get to take it in, because it's sort of, it makes the whole thing a little bit impersonal. The visual signature is diminished. I am, if I seem distracted, it is because there's things going on in the chat that I'm dealing with. But I think my point is made that this is a cool looking game. I like that it's got some style, it's got some signature. Yes, there are comparisons. Mixed feelings about those, and really it's the technical element of just the characters very small. You don't want everything to be action adventure third person in tight, and sometimes there is the consideration of like level design. See that seems very Black Panther to me. All of this seems very Black Panther, but also again, how much comes from the source, the cultural source and things like that. I'm not sure. I think this looks cool though. This one jumped out at me because it does look interesting. I don't know that I've got a whole lot more to say. It looks like an interesting game. This is one that I might check out. Should we move on? I've really only got like one more. I got distracted. Have we gone into enough detail? I'm not sure. This is another one where it's sort of like, it's got that naturalistic thing going on where it's like I'm looking at this game and it's parts of the world that are too familiar to me. The environment is too familiar. It's all a little bit like, you know, I don't really want a game that reminds me of somewhere I can, if I walk, you know, if I walk half an hour, I could be there sort of thing. You know, like I don't want to get into that. This game, Rise of the Ronin, has a bit of that, but at the same time, there's some interesting samurai stuff going on here. There's a sense of character to it. It's naturalistic, but there is an artificial quality to it, and I would say that as a positive. You know, somewhere along the way, realism has become like a default and or desired aesthetic, a desired quality in these things. I don't want reality. Give me exaggerated, wild, crazy circumstances. This has a bit of exaggeration to it, at least. I mean, look at this. Okay. That's some exaggeration, yeah. I don't think it looks brilliant, but I'm interested. This is something that I could potentially see myself playing. Some of this looks a bit like, you know, the classic sort of samurai movies, Kurosawa maybe, you know, very light. But, you know, the chance to dive in and play some of those things, you know, that's not without its attractions. I believe this is Team Ninja, which is kind of interesting, you know. I guess is there a little bit of the genetics of the new Ninja Gaidens lurking beneath the surface? It's sort of that dark, semi-realistic aesthetic. We've gone samurai instead of ninja, you know. I don't love it, but I'm interested. There's a quality to this one that seems like there's potential. It could be good. I don't know that I've got a whole lot more to say about it, really. To me, the big winner was the SEGA trailer. That's the one that's got me excited. That's got the most potential to me. Should we go back? I don't know. I've gone completely off the rails now. I'm tired. I'm sore. And I'm just, you know, I'm just desperate to love something. Desperate to see something that I immediately love. I thought Death Stranding 2 might be it. That's the game that's keeping me, you know, keeping me breathing as a gamer. That said, you know, there's probably a bunch of other things that I'm much more interested in. I'm trying to think, what was there was a game that I came across that I was interested in. Pizza Tower is one that I'd like to try.
Really?
Is that right? Is it Pizza Tower? Yeah, Pizza Tower. I wouldn't mind giving Dredge a try, you know. It's the indie games. It's always the indie games that actually end up getting me more interested. I can't remember. I'm looking for I mean, I might play it at some point, so maybe I shouldn't spoil it. Maybe we should just enjoy the surprise of it all. You know, I'm going to play Shinobi if that's available, if it's nice and cheap. If I can play it on whatever console I have at the time. You know, to me, there's still no compelling reason to own a PS5, which would be my console of choice. Or, what is it? Xbox XE Flexi SX? I don't know. Whatever the new Xbox is called. There's still not a strong, compelling reason, you know. I guess maybe Xbox has something. I'm looking for PlayStation to knock something out of the park, to get something like with massive, you know, just heaps of style, a great new experience. It's just not there. I'm still, you know, the way Sega is boosting their classic IPs, I still think maybe Sony's got to do that. Get me a new Twisted Metal. How is there's like all this hype for the TV show. You had Anthony Mackie presenting and confirming a second season of the Twisted Metal TV show. Where's the new Twisted Metal game, man? That's what we need to see. A really good, you know, I would like to see one in the style of Twisted Metal 2, to me the best game still. Get me a new Parappa the Rapper. Find the people that make Busta Groove to do something with that. I don't know. What is some, like... We've had some Oddworld stuff. You know, that's like a good classic Sony thing. I'm drawing a blank now, man. We've done this enough times, though, to know. There's tons of stuff. Sega's pulling the weight. I wonder what that and more is. It'd be cool to see like a new Daytona or something like that, or a new racing game, Sega Rally or whatever. I'm still pining for like a... did Sega do Fighters Megamix or whatever? I'm pining for a new Sega fighting game, one that gets the Streets of Rage characters in there, get Shinobi in there, you know, as well as like the Fighting Vipers and all that stuff. That'll be kind of fun. One problem with that is like we've seen the fighting game market is pretty well taken care of. We got Tekken 8 coming up. Usually there's a fighting game component in these like trailer reactions. I'm just sticking with what I saw at the Game Awards. I did miss the pre-show. I don't know what was in the pre-show, so you know, whatever went on there. But there are some recent fighting game trailers, so maybe we could do something separate with that. Talk a bit about that. Waffle on, chat it up. If you want to see that, you know, leave a comment or whatever. But for Sega fighting game, maybe that market's wrapped up. It was interesting to see the best fighting game category was usually you get either Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat or maybe Tekken dominating, but this was the first year maybe in the Game Awards era that Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter were nominated the same year. And boy, is it a bad time to be Mortal Kombat, because Street Fighter 6 had to win. If you know me, you know I'm a Mortal Kombat guy. We got the Mortal Kombat 1 Lucifer timeline is going on right now. My venture into Mortal Kombat fan fiction. I'm presenting a story. It's sort of like a storybook style. I don't know what you call it. It's kind of like it's got a like mobile game energy, dialogue things, bad voices, all that stuff. But essentially, I saw Mortal Kombat 1. I didn't like what I saw. Massive details omitted. Logic missing, so I thought, let's cook up a story. It's all about the timelines now, so I'm going to come up with my own timeline. It's the Mortal Kombat 1 Lucifer timeline. We're up to chapter 9 now. It's going to chapter 15. We're matching the game. 15 chapters, a prologue. There's a little bit of like a trailer intro as well. Go check that out on the YouTube channel. You can find the link in the About section on Twitch, or if you're watching it on YouTube right now, there should be maybe like a little tag's probably popped up, or you can just go to the channel and have a look around. You'll find it. Search for Mortal Kombat 1 Lucifer Timeline. You'll find it that way. Search for Hellhole Mortal Kombat, Hellhole Street Fighter. These things will get you there. Hellhole's one word, by the way. Good to know. Yes, Mortal Kombat, very disappointing right now. Street Fighter 6 had to have it wrapped up. I'm enjoying playing World Tour. That's over on the archive right now, too. I've been very slowly working my way through Street Fighter 6 World Tour, and in my estimation, it is the fighting game of the year. For me, it was one of the games of the year. You know, I don't tend to play that many new releases. That's not my priority. There were a few this year. You know, I did play a few. We can't forget like Dakar Desert Rally was in there. You know, I played the Kidnap. That was kind of interesting. So there's been a few 2023 games in the mix, but for me it certainly would have been Street Fighter 6 is the 2023 game that really made my 2023, if you don't count something like Rocket League, which is kind of an ongoing service. I guess there was a bit of Fall Guys in there too. I enjoyed the Death Stranding crossover with Fall Guys, which is in the archive if you want to go check that out. There's all kinds of sights and sounds to see. They don't evaporate once they're gone. You never know. Hellhole's a hangout. You know, it's not necessarily a guaranteed like masterclass in what you got to do. It's not full-on walkthroughs all the time. Although I am slowly but surely walking my way through towards conclusions. I got to start finishing some games, man. Elden Ring is just like, I had an idea for something and then I just let it go. Subnautica's about there. I gotta get a drink of water, man. The Game Awards 2023 is over. I thought it was cool. It was kind of cool. It sort of shook me up when David Harewood was there, because he was Martian Manhunter on Supergirl, and I kind of like him as an actor. He's got a good presence.
Really?
Christopher Judge as well is like another celebrity guest. That was kind of funny when they played the music straight away. Although, like, when some of the guys were accepting their awards, they were playing the music pretty early for them too. Very tight times, even though it seemed like there was less to show this year. It was like a 3-hour show, less going on, and yet people had less time to talk. I don't know how that works. Timothy Chalamet and Posty over on the Discord pointed out the gag about, you know, his old YouTube habits. What was he, an Xbox control modder? Come on, Chalamet. Get in the game. What are you doing, man? I'm dying. I'm dying here. I think we're done. that's video games for 2023. Hopefully something good happens in 2024. We got plenty of potential coming from Sega. I don't know when. They haven't committed to any dates, so hopefully we find out something soon. There's fighting game rumblings going on. If you want to encourage me to do something with that, you definitely leave a comment. Like, subscribe, do those things. I'm in pain. I've like jacked up my back or something, so I'm being a trooper watching these trailers with you. Doing a good service here. Doing something for the community. I don't know. What am I talking about? This is the Hellhole. I'm Internet Sensation Mega Lucifer. It's been real nice spending time with you, and I look forward to whatever comes next. We've still got a little bit of 2023 left. I'm playing Street Fighter 6 World Tour. We're trying to get through this Mortal Kombat 1 Lucifer timeline. There are dangling threads here and there. Some will be dropped. Some will be picked up. No doubt I'll get distracted by something else. The trading card arc persists. Vampire Survivors is bubbling away in the background. There's things here that like I think I'm gonna share them with you because I don't know. That's kind of fun. It's kind of fun just to hang out. That's what I think of the Hellhole as. It's just a hangout, and we can talk about stuff that I'm interested in. I'm trying to emphasize more the things that I'm interested in that I like, and put the disappointments and the negatives to the side. You know, I like checking out these dudes, the cartoonist kayfabe guys. I like checking them out. Mutual interests, but sometimes they go a little bit of a different way. They're a little bit more inclined one way or the other. I just like hanging out with them digitally while they do their thing, look at stuff. That's the kind of thing I figure I'm gonna try to bring here. We've done it with trading cards. We can do it with other things. I don't know. Is this really the time to be talking about that? This is the Hellhole. It's been real nice hanging out with you. Make sure you like, subscribe, do all that stuff, because you know I need all the help I can get. Adios, amigos. Godspeed.